all over there. Look at this. It looks like a restoration work, but it is original actually.
This lower wall?
That's this wall, yes. Dating to 700 BC this time. Okay, rather late compared to the other things. 700 BC makes it Troy 8. Okay, Troy the end of 7 and 8. This is the wall of a sanctuary. This is how it was understood because of that altar. Do you see? Look at that square structure with a very solid base and the marble frame up there, making it an altar, and with the wells around. These two wells here were for water. The one in the middle was for the blood of the sacrificed animals, to collect the blood over there. There is actually a reference made to this in Hellenistic history when the Persian king Xerxes crossed the Dardanelles on his way to Greece. He stopped here to sacrifice 1,000 oxen on the way, okay, making a reference to this. The thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, look, up to this time when we talk of 3000 BC wall we saw, right? 2500 BC wall and the ramp we saw. And in the very beginning we even saw 1500 BC wall, very well preserved. But still we are in the Bronze Age era. Okay? So that means our basic, very main argument that we made the Trojan War a big turning point in the history of the Hellenization. We haven't seen any period of this Hellenic era. Okay, this is still the Hittite world. Remember that letter I showed you, the cuneiform letter addressed to here. So this is the first Greek thing we see here. Okay, and the other thing, when Homer was writing Iliad, this was here. Okay, if Homer visited the city, he must have seen this sanctuary here. So this is the very beginning of the Hellenization in Troy, with an altar, but to which god this was dedicated we don't know, for instance. But this is a sanctuary which continued to survive almost to the Christian era. Okay, this is 300 AD. For 1000 years this was the sanctuary here. The last thing, ladies and gentlemen, there is of course the late Troy here, which we call the Troy 9, and it was something like this. Okay, Troy 9, in this time they didn't know about the past of Troy. They didn't know that they were living over the ruins of a big past. They didn't know about the ramp or the walls. Everything was completely buried in this time. So this ground was leveled, and in Roman times Troy was no longer a prosperous city based on this trade activity of the past, we said, but rather a small settlement relying on its sanctity. Okay? There were some other new centers growing and replacing Troy in importance. But because of this big name of Troy, they had the place in good shape. Okay? So this is the part you are going to see as you walk yourself back to the bus, ladies and gentlemen. You are going to see this little theater. Okay? This little theater is called Odeon. Okay? And then this takes you to another thing.
Is that an old offer?
Another thing to finish is this. This is really an important thing. Okay, remember that picture I showed you, how big Troy must have been. This is the legacy of Korfman. Before he died, he worked very hard to convince the Turkish government to make the whole site an archaeological site. Of course, there were sociological and political consequences of this, because this required the confiscation of thousands of acres of lands. Okay? But with the satellite radar pictures that he took. He presented his case. You know this, right? They are able to see the underground from the satellites. Images, yes. Imaging. He made imaging, and this is clearly visible. I saw such pictures. I mean, that you see the walls of. So this is not just a mere speculation. For instance, the size of the wall still, I mean, visible. This was already located. And then all this land now you see down there, from here all the way making a semicircle to that point, had been confiscated 10 years ago. People are still plowing their land, but for a temporary period till the excavations will be extended down there to reach the lower city of Troy, ladies and gentlemen.
How close was the water? Like,
the water was here. I mean, I showed you, remember, this the picture here. First the water was coming that way, right? Remember the flat I showed you. Then the water was coming also that way. Okay, so the water was all the way. Do you see the sheep over there? This was still the water over there. And a very interesting discovery made. Imagine that this was the Gulf, right? The very harbor of Troy was not on this side of the Gulf, but on the other side, because that reach was a narrow reach between the Gulf and the sea, Aegean Sea, right? So somebody could walk over the reach to the Aegean Sea. So it made a better harbor over there, and they found a cemetery over there. The DNA study of the remnants of the cemetery gave a picture of a mixed multitude of the people buried there, coming from the different ethnicities. So they understood that this must have been a cemetery of the sailors, to back up their main theory of the ships lurking in to take a refuge in cold weather. So this is how.
Have they found bones here? Have they found DNA?
Here in Troy? Yes, they did. They did. But this shows here the important thing, a big pool of DNA, what they found. Okay, African, European, Asian, everything was found in a basket over there across. Please do walk yourself. You